Now that summer's in full swing, what can we do to protect our eyes from the seasonal changes? On this episode of OCuTALK, Dr. Marc Bloomenstein will be discussing the importance of wearing sunglasses, the effects of the sun, eye care safety when swimming, and general tips on how to protect your eyes when the temperature rises. Dr. Bloomenstein?
I want to talk to you.
Not now, later.
No, now.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for a brand new episode of OCuTALK. My name's Nick, and today we have a very special guest joining us, a returning guest to OCuTALK from Schwartz Laser Eye Center in Scottsdale, Arizona, Dr. Marc Bloomenstein. Dr. Bloomenstein, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks. You caught me siesting out here in the 98-degree temperature at 7 o'clock in the morning in Arizona.
Well, you're definitely prepared for summer, and that's fantastic because that's what we wanted to talk to you about today. But before we get started, Dr. Bloomenstein, I know you've been a guest here on OCuTALK before, but do you mind just introducing yourself again, telling us a little bit about your background, your specialty, and your practice?
As you've already mentioned, I work at the Schwartz Laser Eye Center in Scottsdale, Arizona. A lot of our emphasis is on cataract and refractive surgery. And so for me, one of the most important things that I think we do in our practice is getting people excited about being out of glasses or contacts, being able to do the things they like to do, especially now during summertime, liberated from the need to have hardware on their eyes. And so in our practice, we kind of emphasize the aesthetics, if you will, of the eyes. It's not aesthetics. So that's my main goal.
Well, awesome. Again, Dr. Bloomenstein, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. You are prepared for summer. I can see that right there. So for our discussion today, we kind of were hoping that you could talk a little bit about, protecting your eyes during the summertime. What are the things that we need to look out for during this, when the season is changed to summer?
Well, first and foremost, I think almost year round, you have to have a solid pair of sunglasses. I don't think there's enough that can be said about having, obviously 100% if you can UVA, UVB, but then also you really want to emphasize polarization on those glasses. It's one thing to have a pair, it's another thing to actually wear them. Something else, especially too, in the Midwest and here in Arizona during monsoon season, we get a lot of cloud coverage. And oftentimes people think that, you don't have to wear your sunglasses when it's cloudy out. Well, clouds are mainly water. And UV light actually will penetrate through the water. And so you really have to make sure you're wearing your sunglasses all the time. So that's something else. The other thing too, as you can see, I'm outfitted with a hat. It's not just because I have nothing there to protect, but when there's a lot of direct sunlight coming down, sunglasses may benefit you if you don't have the wraparound ones, but having a nice big brim on your hat will also cut down from a lot of the UV light that can actually kind of impact the eyes.
Excellent.
So that's first and foremost.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, doctor. And you talked about the type of sunglasses that you would need to wear when you go outside and like the protection that you need to wear. But what kind of damage can the sun do to our eyes?
Well, UV light can have a lot of negative effects on oxidation in and around the tissue. So first and foremost, it exacerbates existing conditions. For example, people that have allergies or people that have dry eyes. The UV light can basically damage some of the tissue, cause more inflammation, which in turn exacerbates that allergy or exacerbates that dryness. You also will start to see some damage to certain tissues on the white part of your eye. We call that the conjunctiva. So it's that little kind of squint zone. We call that the interpalpebral zone. And that tissue will harden almost like a callus. So that oxidation of that tissue will harden, and that's somewhat irreversible. When that starts to happen, if the eyes aren't lubricated, if they're not, free of kind of some of these radicals that the light and UV light can cause, then that tissue will stay permanently like that. And you can actually, if you go look at some of your friends or look at people who live close to the equator, you can actually see that line there. And if that tissue grows onto the cornea, it almost looks like a wing of tissue, which we call a pterygium, which is Latin for wing. Yes, exactly. So what UV light can also do is expedite cataracts. We know that hardening of the lens inside the eye can be due to this oxidation as well as the retina. Which is, since we're being bilingual, the Spanish for retina is retina. But the retina, so like macular degeneration or certain complications in the back of the eye as well. So UV light's just, it's not a friend. It's really not a friend of the eyes, to be quite honest with you.
I hear you. Very informative, doctor, and thank you for that Espanol lesson as well. I appreciate that. And doctor, I know that a lot of people during the summer months, they like to go out and, obviously like we've been talking about like wearing protection, all that, but obviously when they go out, they're going to want to go swimming probably to cool down. So how does swimming affect everything too? Like how does chlorine and pool chemicals, how do they affect our eyes?
So once again, I mean, the eyes are just kind of this tiny little organism that sits in this bony structure. And it's almost like a child. It needs us to protect it because it's very vulnerable. And so literally when you go into a pool, or if you go into, here in Arizona, we have something called the Salt River, where people like to put on tubes and just float down like a lazy river. Forget the fact that there's no cutoffs for a bathroom, or the fact that the water is starting to evaporate towards the end of the summer. We'll just leave that to your imagination. So now imagine you're jumping in that water, or a pool that has a lot of chlorine or has other little microorganisms. All of those things, basically, if your eyes are open, if you're not wearing goggles, can have negative effects, inducing inflammation. It can cause some corneal issues. You can start to potentially see infection. But I think the inflammation and the irritation is the biggest thing. And I mentioned before about, if you have allergies or if you have dry eye, then the ocular surface is already weakened a little bit. And now you've introduced it to these exogenous type of irritants, which can cause things to be much worse. You start to see your eyes get really red or inflamed. It causes people to want to rub their eyes more, which in turn causes more allergies. It's just kind of a vicious cycle. So if you are going to be going to a body of water, then you really want to think about how you can protect your eyes. And goggles, first and foremost, are one of the most important things that you can do. And especially if you're sitting out, if you're in the water, again, because of the direct reflected light off the water, that's where polarized glasses help. But wearing a big brimmed hat, wearing sunglasses, and so if water does splash in your eyes, you're protected from that. So I think we have to just be conscious of what we're putting into our body. Well, the same thing when you go into a pool of water, any pool of water, what you're putting into your eyes.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you for that information, doctor. And Dr. Bloomenstein, are you seeing a lot of dry eye patients during the summer months still at your office?
So I actually think that dry eye is I think it's perennial. Is that right? Would that be, or annual? No, it's perennial. I think it's all the time. We're doing so many different things with our eyes that, whether it be, this, I'm calling this hot vac summer. So I'm seeing a lot of people want to get out, and just like last summer, we weren't able to do things. And, we were indoors a lot, and we didn't have kind of the same environmental challenges which induced dryness, but we created other challenges. We're all kind of like trying to catch up on Mayor of Easttown, or watching, Bridgerton, or whatever we're doing. But then we also want to get outside. And so once you get outside, now you have other challenges that induce dryness. So for example, I would tell patients to avoid having the air conditioner vent directly blow into their face. I would tell them, if you're going on long trips, or if you're going to be reading a lot, getting on an airplane, just consciously think about blinking more, using more drops. The other things too is that we know there's, whether it be a little Demodex or whether it be some blepharitis, that we have to maintain that, especially during the summertime, because all the things that are inducing more inflammation, causing more dryness, we see kind of manifest themselves a lot more. So in a very roundabout way, to answer your question, the answer is yes. we are absolutely seeing more dry eye. And especially the other thing too, if I can share, is that here in our state, especially, we have a lot of just like dust storms. And I watch the news and I see in the Midwest and even down, in the Southeast, once that wind and once the storms come in, then it just kicks up all of the things that irritate our eyes with much greater intensity. And so we see the same problems that we had during wintertime or fall, we see them just as much during the summertime. So yeah, dry eye is definitely an issue still.
Fantastic. Well, you heard it here, folks. Dr. Bloomenstein says to make sure you consciously blink and stay in and watch Bridgerton when you can. It's a really great show on Netflix. But anyway, Doctor, I just wanted to ask again, are there any new technologies or any developments that are on the eye care horizon that we should be on the lookout for?
Well, I mean, I think if we're looking at maintaining the ocular surface, then one of the things that I would tell you is you always want to look for things that are going to reduce inflammation or get the glands to start secreting better, or better yet, lower the bacterial load, clean off proteins that build up on the eyelids. So to me, what I would, it's not so much new as it is just our better understanding, utilizing the products that we have, using, maintenance. One of the things that I have always kind of encouraged my patients to do is be proactive, be preventative. Proactive basically is that if your doctor tells you, look, you have some dry eye, or if you have the glands along your lids look like they're inflamed or clogged, which is going to induce more dry eye. If you have allergy, then on a daily basis, maybe utilize like a lid scrub, or utilize an artificial tear that has some form of oils in it to protect the eyes. So it's not so much that I would tell you that we see new things on the horizon. There are some new products coming out to help manage the conditions we have. I think the newest thing that we have is our better understanding of how important the ocular surface is to the quality of our vision, especially since it's so important to us. And especially in the last year, how all of us just really, we had nothing else to do except just watch our tablets and look at shows, and we need that vision. So
well, there you go. Excellent information. Thank you for that, Dr. Bloomenstein. And before we wrap things up here, I was just wanted to give you the floor. Was there anything else that you wanted to tell our audience before we left today?
I think what I would tell our audience is that don't take your eyes for granted. Oftentimes we, as we don't feel it, we don't sense it, so we just don't even think about it. To me, having an annual eye exam, going in and just, like having somebody check under the hood, check under the lids, make sure everything's where it should be. Better yet, if you feel like the quality of your vision seems to be fluctuating or changing, then it could be this, what we call dry eye, but what you may call, I don't really think they're dry. So I would just encourage people to get out there, find a doctor, and make sure you get your eyes tested, and get your sunglasses. Make sure you wear those sunglasses.
Excellent. Those look perfect on you. That's very nice. Thank you so much, Dr. Bloomenstein. And everyone, that was Dr. Marc Bloomenstein with Schwartz Laser Eye Center in Scottsdale, Arizona. Dr. Bloomenstein, thank you so much again for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Take care.